Good evening, fine peoples. Welcome once again to the Doktor Zeero free Magick Secrets show, where today we will be continuing our subject of olfactory magic, which is the sense of smell and how that ties into the tarot. And the reason why is that when everything goes down to the basics, the sense of smell is the first thing that hits the deepest parts of your awareness, the deepest parts of your brain, the reptilian part of your brain. It goes direct to the core, and this is the reason why essences and the smells of the essences are imbued together, and why they are synchronistic with tarot. Because with all these lessons, we're just going to once again repeat the basic information, is that the tree of life, as you've seen before, the symbol, it's 10 bubbles, and then connecting lines completing it. The 10 bubbles are the pip cards of tarot, which are the swords, the cups, the pentacles, so forth. And then the connecting paths, the lines connecting the spheres, are, of course, the tarot trumps. So at the very top of the tree of life, we find the number 1, the primal source, the numero uno, which everything else springs from. It's the chicken and the egg. And the way to understand the tree of life is the way, this is an abstract way of concerning it, but say the nameless, or the all, or the essence, the God, whatever you want to call it, right? The thing behind it all. Say the Big Bang started it all, but right before the Big Bang hit, there would be a surge of energy creating the force of the Big Bang, in which basically the DNA of everything that would be encoded. And this is what maybe Christians would call the Holy Ghost, basically. And the idea is that say God is a pool player, and he shoots the cue ball at a stack of 10 billiards set up, and he hits them all at the right second. So the second that they move, that would be the physical reality pouring out. But the force of which it all came towards those to make them spread and start the Big Bang, this is what we're talking about with the Qabalah and the Tree of Life. And you could sort of say like the all the energy behind it right before it hits, it's almost like there would be a invisible mirror reflection of those billiards in the other way that would show the perfect order that they would have to be set in to be hit. Almost like from the cue ball itself. So it would be like 2 pyramids of 10 balls, one a mirror phantasm, which would be the soul of it, that would just whoop at one point and then pop off in the other direction. And both of these essences, the spirit behind everything and the energy blast behind everything and the physical universe itself, that's the tree of life and the tree of life. And then when it comes to the human individual, that's another tree of life, because the human is the minor microcosm of what is seen as the macrocosm. So you see in the tree of life diagram the energy behind the physical universe and the physical universe itself. You see the energy behind the human soul, the blueprint of the human soul, whatever you want to call it. And then the tarot trumps the animating principle of that blueprint, that static blueprint of the spheres, the Sephiroth. And then you also see the physical man. And there's all sorts of medicinal alchemy of the old days wrapped around that. All sorts of philosophy wrapped around that. So the idea here is at the point with smells as well. The peak, the top of it, is one thing in particular, which is sort of the number 1. It's the pure ace. When we talk about the spheres, this is the ace of cups, the ace of swords, etc., etc. So the aces. So what's at the ace of the top of all smell? Ambergris, the thing that sperm whales either poop or pee out, and then it gets found floating in the ocean and then turned into the building block starter of all perfumery. And so we're going to have a discussion about why this is such an important symbolic thing and has an importance from the point of the pure ace, the number 1, which is called Cather, or Cather as some say, and it is also known as the crown. So number 1, the chicken and the egg, the very first pinpoint prick. When it comes to number magic, the number 1, it's the first. It's just a point and limitless space. It's the first flick. So this is the first flick. So if you say the 1, 2, and the 3 up the triangle up top of the tree of life, it's sort of like quote unquote God saying, I am, like thinking, and then I am God, boom, and then everything would go from there. And then I think, therefore I am, and that's basically the three trumps, the actual lines connecting those things. I am God. I am God. I think, therefore I am. I guess, or yes, let there be light. This is the same sort of three idea over and over and over. So anyway, getting to ambergris, the pure white light. And it represents no magnetic polarity at all, because that will be solved by number 2 and 3, which is the top of the pillar of the right and left hand path, which is female and male in negative and positive forms, such as AC/DC, such as an electrical output, meant in that, not in gender. So it's the highest ace, devoid of any suit. Ketter, according to Kabbalistic doctrine, is the source of all, including that which is beyond manifestation. In human terms, it represents the reunion of a pure soul with the Godhead as a white diamond. Cather symbolizes the source beyond the creator God, or universal mind. Universal mind is limited to the causal plane, below the abyss on the tree of life. Ketter is known as the crown and symbolizes the crown chakra. Thus, wearing the scent of Cather can be seen as a psychosensory stimulation of your crown center, the top psychic center above the head in yogic philosophy. Stabilizing consciousness at this center is the goal of human spiritual evolution. Of course, wearing the scent won't take the place of the inner work of meditation. Rather, it functions as a mnemonic device, directing your attention and contemplation towards spiritual development. Your personality affirms its identification with spirit by seeking the light above your head. Keywords or qualities we seek to stimulate with this scent include contemplation, devotion, eternity, peace, perfection, restoration, and unity. Reflecting its attribution to Ketter, ambergris is considered one of the most valuable materials used in perfumery. It comes from the sperm whale, or cachalot, and it is now boycotted voluntarily by the perfume trade for ecological reasons. Ambergris is produced largely by the male of the species after feeding on squid or cuttlefish, Elodon moschata, which has an indigestible beak. The whale's irritated digestive system surrounds the offending substance with a pathological growth, ambergris. The whole mass is passed or vomited out. Ambergris is an amorphous lump of no single size or weight. Color varies from black to brown to gray or white, chalky white. It floats because of its waxy, spongy texture. It takes an expert to identify good ambergris. It has a specific gravity of 0.900 and melts at fairly low temperatures. The best ambergris is light gray or white, having been exposed to sun and sea. It is so rare that the largest find of top-quality pure white ambergris was recorded at 20 ounces. The darker the mass, the less it is worth because of contaminants. The heart or core of a lump is the purest, most desirable portion. True ambergris softens at 60 degrees Celsius and readily liquefies at higher temperatures. It is soluble in ether as well as oils and consists of about 80% ambrion, an odorous substance found in the cuttlefish beaks subjected to bacterial action. Says Aleister Crowley from the book 777. Ambergris has comparatively little perfume of its own, but it has a virtue of bringing out the best of any other which it may be mixed. In the same way, Cather cannot be said to have any intrinsic qualities, but its influence brings out the highest faculties of those ideas which it illuminates. So, for geographic location, where whales are found, or as flotsam washed ashore, we find ambergris. Main finds in the past were from Africa, the Persian Gulf, and the Austro-Asiatic Pacific. In more recent times, finds are made of whaling stations in the intestines of dissected sperm whales. Now the history here. The history of ambergris is long, and as it has been highly prized for many centuries. For most of that time, no one was sure just where ambergris originated. It was valued as an aphrodisiac and as a fragrance and fixative. Legends and conjuncture surrounded its procurement. Ambergris has been an important trade item since at least AD 1000, when the Arabs spread its romance to many nations. A New Zealander was reported to have found a lump weighing 42 pounds once. Earlier finds averaged between 150 to 270 pounds, with the largest being 926 pounds, marketed in 1953. Large finds are more rare nowadays and often are covered with dirt and other waste material. High-quality, relatively clean parcels of 15 to 70 pounds are found in the intestines of whales, while larger chunks come from the stomach. Ambrion, the crystalline, odorous material, is the quote-unquote glue that holds the mass together. The process of extracting ambergris has evolved over the last 2 centuries. French perfumers originally ground it with sugar candy, mixed it with rose spirits, and set it in the sun to mature. Other chemists used some musk, cinnamon, lemon, orange, and lavender. The earliest perfume manual in English, by Charles Lilly, 1822, gives a recipe mixing 1.5 ounces of ambergris with 30 grains of musk and 20 grains of civet. This was added to sugar and solvent and placed in horse dung for 21 days to create spirit of ambergris. For the scent and appearance, the odor of ambergris is difficult to define. It has a low-intensity odor with the fixative quality of lifting or exalting other odorants. This effect is strong when combined with musk or civet, as well as floral or aldehydic notes. The smell ambergris is described as being earthy, musty, musky, and reminiscent of the sea. It is a discreet, smooth, and pervasive odor. Some of the most luxurious perfumes contain ambergris. From ecological concern, many prefer to use the excellent synthetic ambergris products now available. Advantages include cost, availability, and consistent quality. Although their odors differ slightly from real ambergris, they are in no way inferior in their psychological effect. Still, some magical purists will insist on using the real thing. If your style of work demands the natural ingredient, be ready to pay through the nose to get it. Typical extractions of ambergris vary in color and odor. Powdered ambergris is mixed with alcohol and agitated by machine for several days at a temperature of 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. Bottles are then occasionally shaken as the contents mature. Before use, the product is filtered for usable extract. One must be an expert to evaluate the results. Synthetic ambers are offered in solid, semi-solid, and liquid forms, blended with other scents. The main constituent, methyl nonyl acetic aldehyde, is also sold as aldehyde. There are 3 main classes of amber notes. 1, Fixator 404, Firmenich. Number 2, Amrophor and Grisombrol, Firmenich. And Amberome, Cynarome, and 3, reproductions based on labdanum. The first and finest of these has a dry, woody, earthy, natural odor that builds over time and is tenacious. Grisombrol almost duplicates natural ambergris and so must be used in minute quantities. A little of it mixed with musk and civet would make an excellent Cather scent and would represent the entire supernal triad, composed of spheres 1 through 3 and representing the most spiritual aspects of existence. The labdanum-based synthetics are mixed with musk, civet, castor, and modifiers of jasmine, rose, patchouli, clary sage, and so forth to soften the chemical odor. In terms of blending, ambergris is the slowest to evaporate of all the perfumery materials. Due to cost and availability, use of this extract is confined to preparation of the finest perfumes. Its delicate odor does not compete with delicate florals. No synthetic can compare with the natural product in mellowing perfumes, and the amount used depends on the style of the perfumer. Modern tincture of ambergris is prepared by dissolving 2% to 3% concentration in 95% alcohol. This mix is stirred by machine for at least 3 months, neutralized with ammonia, then filtered. The longer the period of maceration and aging, the better the result, providing the original substance is of good quality. Tincture of ambergris, 3%, can be replaced by much less expensive synthetics with excellent results. A good substitute is 3% tincture of ambergris synthetique. It's called Givauden, Givauden. Another substance to use with great restraint on account of its strength is Fixator 404, also known as Firmenich. Dosages of 0.1% to 0.2% of a perfume concentrate may be 2 or 3 times too strong. You can mix your own reproduction of ambergris using olivdanum resin, olibanum resin, liquid amber, actually, if that's correct, storax resin, benzoin resin absolute, tolu and Peru balsams, oak moss absolute, clary sage oil, sandalwood oil, patchouli oil, vetiver oil, cypress and costus oils, and civet. Shalmugra oil, cold pressed from the seeds of Taroctogenos curzi king, yields a tincture that stimulates ambergris on the human skin. It imparts warmth and sensuality to perfumes. Now that we have placed ambergris as the Ketter scent or essence, as far as the spheres on the Tree of Life are concerned, the next question is, what path does it best represent? Well, it always seems to be the moon card. Tarot Trump number 18, which stands in many, in the Golden Dawn and other systems, most modern systems, it will be Pisces, which is the tone B and the color magenta. And alongside ambergris, we also get lumped in these lunar scents that kind of turn up with Pisces, which are lily, honeysuckle, and violet. Now, this maybe ambergris is considered it isn't considered the ultimate scent, but maybe a combination of all four. But it's important that it is put in this perspective. So, on key scale number 29, which is card 18, the moon, Pisces, is lunar. Its color is magenta, letter Q, and tone B. Aleister Crowley alluded to this as a malefic path of witchcraft in its lowest sense. Therefore, the violet scent for warding off evil is a useful adjunct to the attribution of ambergris, which was covered extensively under the earlier section. So perhaps the ambergris classification has a little bit more to do with the actual magical application, because as we said, the spheres of the Sephiroth are more like the static principles, the actual foundational draft plans, the electrical framework of the building, and the tarot paths are like the actual energy flowing through the chart. Sort of, so understand that this makes sense because this path relates to biorhythms and body consciousness, particularly that governed by the cerebellum. It is the realm of instincts and deceptions. Its feelings and qualities include bewilderment, dreaminess, empathy, fluidity, illusion, imagination, intuition, psychism, vacillation, and yearning. On this path, you must face and overcome the phantoms of your own subconscious. So, violet flower, absolute, comes from Viola odorata, which blooms from February through April. Its leaves are heart-shaped and downy, perhaps suggesting the smoothing over of tensions in love relationships. The stalks arise from a creeping rhizome. The deep purple flowers have 5 sepals at their base and 5 unequal petals. The plant propagates itself by putting out runners. Violet is cultivated for perfume in France, Italy, China, and India. Over 200 species are widely distributed through all temperate zones and many tropical areas. Violet comes from the Latin viola, which is derived from the Greek name Ione. Myth tells us that when Hera became jealous, Zeus changed his lover Io into a white heifer. Violets sprang from the earth for her food. Homer and Virgil wrote about violets. The Greeks alleged that they moderated anger. Later, the Celts used violets for cosmetics, to enhance beauty, for glamour magic, and to combat wicked spirits. It was also prescribed for insomnia, and as this path is associated with sleep, it is germane. Napoleon used the violet as the emblem of his imperial party as well. Violet perfumes have ionone or methyl-ionone as their base and are further modified or blended. Good synthetics contain at least some absolute. Extraction of flowers is uneconomical and has become rare, but violet is not an especially popular scent anymore. Absolute is olive greenish, viscous, and has a delicate, sweet floral odor. Even before World War II, Violet Absolute was over $5,000 per pound. In terms of blending, synthetic violet goes well with clove, bud, absolute, mimosa, baronia, ylang ylang, sandalwood, bergamot, and other synthetics. There's a Stellar Visions bouquet for Quoth, includes anise, pine, and violet. Another correspondence which we find with Ambergris is with the god Hades, which is linked to Pluto. The astrological symbolism here is that with Hades, as the archetype of death and rebirth, Pluto symbolizes the most radical transformations of consciousness. Through breakdowns in ordinary reality, Pluto teaches the necessity for detachment. Pluto also symbolizes the transcendental aspect of sexuality, the evolutionary para of life, and death cycle of the body. But the soul can also experience death, decay, and subsequent resurrection. Keywords include charisma, power, regeneration, renewal, sexual magnetism, surrender to change, and wealth. The god form visualization here is that Pluto, the Greek Hades, is the king of the underworld, the realm not only of death, but of the deepest subconscious. He is known as the Wealthy One, both because of his treasure of departed souls and because of the symbolic treasures entombed in the deepest recesses of human awareness. Closing our eyes, we depart from the realm of ordinary awareness on a short journey that takes us far from the land of the living. At the most remote reaches of our awareness, we enter a cave so deep it seems to penetrate to the very center of the earth. There we find vast caverns, whipped by winds of an unknown source. In this cold, gray land, we can sometimes think we perceive phantoms drifting and floating in the swirling vapors. The sighing of the winds mingle with the ghostly wailing. Shortly after, we come upon a vast chamber from which comes a glow that flashes like an opal. It has a pungent smell that does little to allay our sense of terror and a mystery. Not daring to meet death face to face, we peek in to see the reflective shadow of an enormous form. We know from this shadow that he has the head of an immense black ram, who is the king of the underworld in human form. This encounter with death strikes deeply into our hearts, and we are transformed at the root of our being, so far from consciousness that we remain unaware of the change. Having been granted this boon, we depart for sunnier realms. Approach Hades obliquely, with fear and trembling. Do not face him directly. And ambergris oil is considered one of the planetary oils in many, many different traditions. And quickly to return back to Pisces and back to the moon card of the tarot, which we were speaking of earlier. It stands for the letter Q of the Hebrew alphabet. And here's the key of understanding. All the tarot trumps are the 22 letters of the Jewish Hebrew alphabet. Here's the thing going on here, is that envision it like this. Each single one of these Hebrew letters is more like a rune. But the rune itself stands for a hieroglyph. And the hieroglyphs, multiple of them. And there are enough hieroglyphs to fill an entire Egyptian pyramid. And the reason why this is because Moses was a devotee and student of the Egyptian mystery schools and went through their program of learning the secrets of each single pyramid. And the pyramids, this was part of their wisdom thing. You'd be led through the pyramids and learn step by step all this philosophy. And this is another discussion altogether. But so understand that each of these Jewish letters are actually runes that stand for very, very complex hieroglyphs that are just simply squished into a very basic symbol. And not only do they have all that going on, they also represent a number. And that number is tied to Pythagorean number magic, expansion, philosophy. And that's what all the ancients studied. So again, the ideas of Pythagoras circulated and consolidated. So there's reasons why and whatnot, and the overall scheme of tarot and how it all works with Qabalah. But again, we're gonna get to that later. Right now, we're talking about Pisces. So I just want to talk about what that is specifically, the moon card. So pronounced Kiof, it means the back of the head. That's sort of the secret Jewish lingo of it when they talk about its when it has its little like nickname. It's called the back of the head. It has a Yetziric title. It's called the corporeal intelligence. That's coming from some Jewish mystic writing that comes a little bit later down the tube of when all this stuff is created. So when you hear these like corporeal intelligence or these different intelligences, these are a later invention, and they're all important and they do add up, but understand that those are not forced onto the original conceptions. They're a later addition. So anyway, the attribution of the moon card is Pisces and the sign of the fishes. This path itself is a very difficult one to describe, as it undoubtedly refers to some aspect of the astral plane. And as we said, Crowley said this was a path of malefic magic, which is true in itself. Because everything is lunar, right? Lunar is it's like a swimming underbelly of the lunar. So you understand about how Pisces is passive or aggressive in the zodiacal scheme. Learn into that as well. Because again, at the Doktor Zeero Free Magic School, Magick Secrets show, we demand our students, we take you about 66.06% of the way there. And 66.6% of the way there, and then you have to figure out the rest. So here we go. And this Pisces in the moon it's also a phallic symbol. So with the fish referring to the spermatozoa swimming in the foundation of one's being. So it's got a spermy fertility, male sort of principle thing going on. Its Hindu attribution is Vishnu as the Matsu or fish avatar. Neptune and Poseidon are both queued up insofar as their realm of government includes the domination wherein fish dwell. And Kepra, as the beetle or crab, are other correspondences. All these symbols are conceal or relate to a species of magic which is allied to the application of the formula of the Tetragrammaton. So it's another thing to understand is that all of these different Jewish runes or letters are also their own form of magic in and of itself. It isn't always described so blatantly. It's all between the lines, and it gives you the information without telling. Because they had to hide things and conceal things in language because they didn't really want outsiders to know. After all, the white people who appropriated their culture turned everything into Christianity and said, all of your writings are real. And they didn't know most of them were witchcraft diagrams, if you want to call it that way, magical diagrams, such as Genesis. But so we see that in history, Jesus of Nazareth is sometimes termed as Piscean, and readers will recall early Christian amulets upon which were inscribed the Greek word ictus, meaning fish, the fisher of men's souls. So that's part of the relationship there with the symbolism, and having reference to the personality recognized as the Son of God by the Christian churches, with it, of course. Now, the Babylonian teacher of wisdom, Oannes, likewise was represented in phallic fish form. Its sacred creature to Pisces, here it's the dolphin. Its color buff and its jewel, the pearl. The pearl is referred to Pisces because of its cloudly brilliance, as contrasted with the transparency of other jewels, thus reminding one somewhat of the astral plane with its cloudy forms and semi-opaque visions, as opposed to the flashes of formless light appearing to purely spiritual planes. Card 18, the moon, describing a midnight landscape on which the moon is shining. Standing between two towers, a jackal and a wolf, with muzzles pointed in the air. They're howling at the moon, and a crayfish or crab crawls out of the water onto dry land. And now we return to the number one sphere, the Sephiroth, Cather itself, which Ambergris has the strongest correspondence of. So this is just a little talk about Cather itself. The scientific conception of the mathematical electron, which occupies the whole of space, would correspond to the Kabbalistic conception of Keter in the world of Asaya. It's about 4 worlds. There are 4 worlds represented, the different pip cards, the 4 suits of the tarot, and that's a different discussion, but look into that. So right now we're the world of Asaya. So in the Qabalah are included what are known as the 10 Sephiroth, the bubbles you see, of course, in the Tree of Life. So there is some little speculation as to what these imply. 10 numbers, 10 words, 10 sounds. The general implication of that they are substantive principles, or kelim, vessels of force or categorical ideas through which the consciousness of the universe expresses itself. A metaphorical passage from the Zohar states on this point, and this is from the Zohar, okay? So it calls the waters of the sea are limitless and shapeless, but when they are spread over the earth, they produce a shape. The source of the waters of the sea and the force which it emits to spread itself over the soil are 2 things. Then an immense basin is formed by the waters, just as it is formed when one makes a very deep digging. This basin is filled by the waters which emanate from the source. It is the sea itself and can be regarded as a 3rd thing. This very large hollow of waters is split up into 7 canals, which are like so many long tubes by means of which the waters are conveyed. The source, the current, the sea, and the 7 canals form together the number 10. This passage then goes on to explain that the source of primary cause of all things is Keter, the first Sephira. In Hermetic terms, we hear the as above, so below. The so below all corresponds right to as above, and as above is a central point in space, which Keter represents. Of course, there's Keter in its energy form before the Big Bang, and then what Keter would be in the human world, after the material expansion of it. So, but we're talking to him again, the ghost tree, the ghost tree of life, the holy spirit tree, So it goes back to the primary cause of all things, Keter. It's like if God was a billiards player and hit a cue ball, and then the cue ball with the white ball with all the force hit 10 billiards all at the same time and go. Keter is right that very moment, that inertia, right when the cue ball would hit those billiards and make the move. And the whole tree of life is seen as like 10 billiards all moving in unison at the same time. Bam. So the current issuing therefrom, the primeval mercurial intelligence. Okay. Wait a second. Go back 1 second. Sorry. The passage then goes on to explain that the source or primary cause of all things is Keter, the first Sephira. The current issuing therefrom, the primeval mercurial intelligence is Hokmah, the second. And the sea itself is the great mother, Binah, the third. The 7 canals referred to being the 7 lower Sephiroth, or inferiors as they are called. The Kabbalists postulated 10 Sephiroth because to them 10 was a perfect number, one which included every digit without repetition and contained the total essence of all numbers. Isaac Myers writes that 0 to 1 ends with 1 to 0, hence 10. And Rabbi Moses Cordovero, in his Partis Rimonim, soliloquizes that the number 10 is an all-embracing number. Outside of it, there exists no other. For what is beyond 10 returns again to units. Cather, the crown, is then the first Sephira, the number 1. As the first cause, or demiurgos, it is also called macroprosopus, or the great countenance in the Zohar. The number 1 has been defined by Theon of Smyrna as the principle and element of numbers which, while multitude can be lessened by subtraction and is itself deprived of every number, remains stable and firm. The Pythagoreans said that the monad, number 1, is the beginning of all things, and gave it, according to Photius, the names of God, the first of all things, the maker of all things. It is the source of ideas. To each Sephira, the doctrinal Qabalah attributes intelligences variously called gods, Dianchons, angels and spirits, etc. For the whole universe in this philosophy is guided and animated by a whole series of these hierarchies of sentient beings, each with a particular function and mission, varying in their respective degrees and states of consciousness and intelligence. We might also call them archetypes. There is but one indivisible and absolute consciousness thrilling throughout every particle and infinitesimal point in the manifested universe in space. But its first differentiation, by emanation or reflection, is purely spiritual and gives rise to a number of quote-unquote beings which we may call gods, their consciousness being of such a nature or such a degree of sublimity as to surpass our comprehension. Perhaps they're astral beings, we don't know. From one point of consideration, the gods are the forces of natures. Their names are the laws of nature. They are therefore eternal, omnipresent, and omnipotent. Only, however, for the cycle of time, almost infinite though it be, wherein they are manifested or projected. The names of the gods are important, for according to magical doctrine, to know the name of an intelligence is at once to possess peculiar control of it. Professor Flinders Petrie, in his little work of The Religion of Ancient Egypt, states that, quote-unquote, the knowledge of the name gave power over its owner. And this is an interesting little secret of goetic magic and evocation and invocation. So we find attributed to the crown, the first digit, the attribution of the god name of Ahaya, translated by I will be, signifying definitely that the scheme of nature is not a static one, nor a system of existence wherein the creative processes have long been consummated, but vibrant, progressive, and ever becoming. The idea is that whatever God would be, it woke up and wanted to keep expanding. Because that's one of the only things that we can know for sure, because the universe is constantly ever expanding. So something, whatever the inertia, like I said, the idea of the billiard guy, the mysterious billiard player shooting his cue ball, and he has to use the pool stick as the zimzum. He's got to stay away. He can't touch it. Because if God was absolute perfection, he could never be part of the universe. He's seen as this nameless thing beyond. And then even beyond him, there's this thing, little magic secret. They talk about God's shadow. But no one really knows about that. And the rabbis don't like to talk about that one. But there's some stuff to see there. And then the shadow of the shadow. But this is these crazy number magics we don't really know about. So that's your secret magic lesson right there. But anyway, the Egyptian gods are Ptah, P-T-A-H, who, again, according to Professor Flinders Petrie, was one of the abstract gods, as distinguished from human or cosmic gods. And he was the creator of the cosmic egg. And Amon-Ra, with whom Osiris became identified, king of the gods and lord of the thrones of the world. Its Greek equivalent is Zeus, identified in the Roman theogony as Jupiter, the greatest of the Olympian gods, and is generally represented as the omnipotent father and king of gods and men. The Romans considered Jupiter as Lord of Heaven, the highest and most powerful among the gods, and called him the best and most high. In the Indian systems, he is Brahma, the creator from whom sprang the seven Prajapati, our seven lowest Sephiroth, who at his behest completed the creation of the world. The diamond is attributed to Cather because it is the most permanent and glittering of precious jewels. It is said that when you actually get to Gnosis of Cather, you become a white diamond. If you go to a Gnosis of Thamael on the Tree of Death, you become the black diamond. White diamond, black diamond, another major magic secret. For various reasons, too, the ancients made the swan a correspondence of this digit. In the legends of all peoples, the swan is the symbol of spirit and ecstasy. The Hindu legends narrate that the swan, Hansa, when given milk mixed with water for its food, separated the two, drinking the milk and leaving the water. This being supposed to show its transcendent wisdom. The hawk also is a correspondence. Bearing in mind that Ketter is the monad, the individual point of view, we can understand that the hawk is so attributed because it has a habit of remaining poised in midair, looking down from the blue aether to earth, and beholding all things with the eye of utter detachment. Ambergris, the rarest and most precious of perfumes, while having little perfume in itself, is most admirable as the basis of compounds, bringing out the best of any other which it may be mixed, finds its place in this category of ideas. The color attributed to Cather is white. Its tarotic attributions are the four aces, and it is called in the Sefer Zera the admirable or hidden intelligence. According to Rabbi Azariel's commentary on the 10 Sephiroth, each of the Sephiroth has three distinct qualities. First, it has its own Sephirothal function, already described. Its secondary aspect is that it receives from the previous Sephiroth or from above in the case of Ketter. And third, it transmits its own nature, and that received from above to those Sephiroth below. And that's all we're up for today, learning about Ambergris and Ketter on the Doktor Zeero Free Magic Secrets Show. Please hit the subscribe button. Let people know I exist. I cannot promote myself. I am Zero. I am a nobody. This must remain a secret show. Other people have to let people know it must exist. So it would be very, very wonderful if you could make that happen. It'd make me so happy. So, yeah. All this sort of stuff. Man, I want a coney dog. Y'all know those coney dogs in Euro. They're not called gyros. You don't get them called gyros from Coney Island. You get a gyro. You get the gyro, but it's tough to eat that because, COVID is on there and you don't really want to eat anything anybody else made. You just want to eat stuff that's like made by a machine and you microwave and, oh, COVID. Man, I wish I could go for a pizza, man. If any of you want to just hang out like a Ninja Turtle sometime and some future day when we're all vaccinated with a real vaccine and we can just have a pizza party, you can be Michelangelo. Everybody else gets to be Michelangelo. You all get the nunchucks. You get to be the dude. I don't want to be Krang. I don't want to be the weird dude with Krang in the belly. I don't want to be Shredder. I don't want to be the rat. I want to be, wasn't there like that weird Mad Baxter guy? But before he got turned into like a weird fly creature, I remember I had that toy, but like he was just a weird like goofy scientist. But yeah, I just want to be the weird goofy scientist and you be Michelangelo and Donatello and such. And then we'll eat lots of pizza, Domino's, garlic crust. Sometimes filled with cheese, but that's really bad on the stomach later. You remember that's a bad idea later at night. You really don't want that cheese-filled crust shit. So, anyway, later, guys. Good to see you. Blah, blah, blah. Stay tuned.